Hey everybody, welcome back. Today I want to talk about this whole being positive thing, and especially when it comes to things like death and dying and like other challenging situations like serious illness. So I'm going to talk about that today. Hi, my name is Abigail, here to normalize these conversations and education about death and dying so we die better at end of life. I remember when I was pretty ill, especially some part of 2020 through most of 2023. The worst times being end of 2020, 2021, and part of 2022. And those are probably the worst times. But the real bad time was 2021 and the end of 2020. And it really impacted my health so much so that I couldn't even work for a year. My physician put me on medical leave first for a few months, but then after I was also hospitalized and, had some other stuff that pops up, they extended it to a full year. So I say that because during that time, there was a lot of time where I was just really trying to fight and do so much to get better. And I had one thing after another. And I was the person doing every single thing, like according to Western medicine, and then every single thing according to any other woo-woo thing that was out there. So I was doing it all. I spent a ton of money on everything just to constantly take 2 steps forward and then like 5 steps back all the time. And I'm still on about 10 to 12 medications depending on what's going on with me. But I'm in a much better place now, much healthier. But I still have, days where things are pretty challenging depending on what's going on. I say all this because I'm just telling you all this because in that context, I had people who, even though I always didn't want to be like negative and I was always trying to I either avoided people if I was really in a negative space or really bad place where I was, even wanting to be dead because I was so done living in my body, I would avoid people. But, people in general just always said to stay positive and just, really positive vibes and things like that. And what I want to say whether it's you or a loved one that is dealing with a tough moment, whether they're dealing with a loss, such as like death or death of a person or death of a loved one or death of a relationship, death of a career, whatever it may be, trying to instill positivity into that situation most likely doesn't resonate with that person who is in the midst of dealing with the shit. Okay? While I imagine, that it comes from a good place and the intentions are probably pure and loving, it's not going to resonate with the person who is in the midst of that chocolate pudding storm. Okay? So what I want to first say is please, as well of an intent as you have behind it, from trying to say something like just be positive, think positive thoughts, positive vibes here only, I want to give us permission to just put that aside for now. And if it works for some people, then great. If it works for you, then stick with it. Do what works for you. But I think in the majority of cases, especially in my 20 years in medicine, 15 of those being in hospice and palliative care, when we're in the crux of a situation where we're facing life and death type of stuff, those types of remarks about positivity really won't resonate because the person is in a different phase. Their mind is in a different state. Their heart is in a different state. And they're dealing with things where trying to interject and force positivity into it just doesn't seem genuine. They need something a little bit more to try to get them from point A to B. The positivity is not just, sprinkling with positivity is not just going to make them feel better. So what I propose instead of trying to, be positive and positive vibes, is when you can, emphasis on when you can and when it's feasible, try to just generate a little bit of meaning. And I'm saying a little bit of meaning in that moment or in a moment during whatever process you're going through. Not for every single moment, because especially if you're dealing with illness, it's going to be too exhausting. It's too much to ask. But how can you generate a moment of meaning and make sure you get most out of it? If you generate some meaning in these moments, then you get something out of it for that day. Trying to force positivity is not going to be genuine. It's not really going to do much for you. In fact, it might make you and your loved ones more frustrated because you're like, but I'm dealing with this shit and I'm not positive right now, this is not going to work. Trying to generate a little bit of meaning, though, in a moment or two, and I'm talking about small, 10 seconds if it's all you have in you today, whether it's by yourself in your own body, sinking into your body and just thinking about, I'm glad I at least have my bed, and I'm going to make this meaningful and watch a show that's going to make me laugh. I'm going to put on some Seinfeld, whatever it is. Or like if you have a pet, if a pet comes up to you, especially when you're not in the greatest moments and your pet puts their head on you or puts their paw on you or sits next to you, make that moment meaningful by just being really present with that pet. Put your phone down and just take in the fact that this pet loves you enough to know that something's maybe going on and they're trying to comfort you in their own way. Or even when you're having a really bad day and you're crying, and if a loved one of yours is able to just be there and either cry with you or hold your hand or maybe give you a hug, just revel in making a little bit of meaning in that moment. Maybe you don't have to say anything, but if you can say something, just let them know how important it is that they're there for you, for example. Some of us go through these things alone, and I will be talking about in another video, but whatever you can, wherever you can create meaning. And maybe you are alone and maybe you just decide to write a really nice email to a loved one, or maybe a provider gave you some really good care, maybe a nurse or medical tech or someone gave you really good care and you wrote a really nice note to them. And, because oftentimes we generate a lot of meaning by doing something for somebody else, even when we're in the midst of a tough situation. I'm not saying it all, though. If you're really fine out on energy right now, really focus your energy inward if you can, and really disperse it thoughtfully and intentionally because you don't want to wear yourself out more. But sometimes if you have a little bit more energy, doing something for somebody else or something else really does actually fill you up. That's one of the quickest ways that we can actually generate meaning and feel like we have some purpose here. So let me know what you think. Again, I like to be really practical in these matters, taking the pressure off of ourselves and trying to create this life where, the movies and other people have said that we have to do things a certain way. I don't believe that is true. We want to be really real here. We want to be practical because we have to live day to day until we die. And we want to make the best of it, but also do it in a way that's not going to just drive us crazy. So I hope today, at least, you can have a little bit of meaning in some moment along the way and that can get you maybe a little bit more out of today than what you expected. My name is Abigail. Thank you so much for tuning in. Let's continue to normalize these conversations and education about death and dying so we die better at the end of life. I will talk to you soon.